It's changed the envelope practices. It has changed the structural practices are not so different, but how we're encapsulating those is. So yes, it is relatively new. And I do believe that as people learn and understand what this is, especially within the generation that I'm in and the ones following, health has not been a priority like it is for this generation. And the more people that I talk to and tell this story to, especially other men that I talk to about this, they tell me, if you told my wife what you just told me, there is zero chance she's going with any other builder, because you're telling her that you're going to protect her babies by building this home this way.
Are you tired of working more for less profits in your home service business? What if I could show you $100,000 in hidden annual profits in your business in less than 3 minutes? Would you be interested? And not only show you where, but how to create that 100K in 6 months or less without additional advertising or marketing spend guaranteed. Just go to sharpenthespearcoaching.com to see how truly simple it is. That's sharpenthespearcoaching.com. Do it now.
And we are back on STS Sharpen the Spear podcast with another incredible guest. I have Craig Leonard with us today. And the great thing about this interview is I've known Craig for probably going on almost 4 years now. In our 4th year, he's been a client of mine. I've been working with him with his custom home construction business down in Texas. And I finally feel he's ready to be on the podcast. Yes, no, I'm just kidding. He has always been ready. He's a man who can communicate, really knows this stuff, and it's been a joy working with him. So I thought we'd bring him on today, talk about a few things, kind of get his backstory, bring us up to speed, and we'll get into the workings of what he's accomplished these last few years. I think it's going to be an awesome conversation. So, Craig, as we always do, no one knows Craig better than Craig. So, Craig, fill us in. Bring us up to speed.
Fantastic. Thanks for having me today, Richard. So I'm a custom home builder. I live in the beautiful Texas Hill Country. It is the most beautiful place on the planet. And we have a lot of things going on here. I mean, a lot. So kind of some backstory real quick. My father started this business in 1980 and has been building custom homes ever since. And he retired actually about 2 years ago. Prior to myself doing this full time, I was in education. I was a high school teacher and was in the education industry for almost a decade before God started tugging at me to come and join the family business. And what a ride it's been since that decision. I'll tell you, it has been a ride. And to sum it up, God is good. And if you depend on him, he's going to lead you where you need to go. So that's kind of a quick backstory. I can't wait to get into the details and tell you more about it, but that's a quick synopsis of then and now.
Awesome. Thanks, Craig. Yeah, it's, then like the fun really began, right? You got to that point, you dove in. So let's talk about that a little bit, because there's a lot of people who, and it's interesting because not everybody continues a family business. It's a very unique dynamic. When people get into it, a lot of kids, depending on how the business was run, what their parents went through, building it, running it, what it was like, a lot of them want nothing to do with it because dad was never around. Your mom, it was arguments. It was short of money. There was a lot of chaos, a lot of stress, stuff like that, but they kept doing it because what they knew, and the kids want nothing to do with that. So I always comment to my clients too, or when I'm on podcasts, they say, if you build it where it actually does run itself, you got the right system, processes in place, stuff like that, and your kids see that, they might actually want to continue it because you are around. You get to do this and get to do that, right? And have that freedom we all want from getting into business. So let's talk about that a little bit, because I know when we first connected, kind of where you're at. So let's kind of share what that was like, that kind of day in the life of Craig 4 years ago when he began this.
Sure. I'll start right when I exited education, which was in middle of 2018. Was very successful as a teacher. I was a high school agricultural mechanics teacher, so I got to teach all the fun stuff. I taught welding, I taught metal fabrication, animal science, all those fun vet tech classes, and I was thriving there. And I really did start feeling God tug at me saying, I need you to exit this and go to your family business, which is construction. And I really couldn't understand it. But I have had enough life experience up until that point to know that if God's leading me here, I really should pay attention. So I did. I joined my dad and my brother, and my mom in the family business. My mom was our bookkeeper, CFO, and my dad was everything else pretty much. And my brother's a master carpenter and the best carpenter on the planet. I had watched my mom and dad run this business since I was, well, as long as I can remember. And they'd always worked together and had a home office. They did move it out of the house for a time, but I did get to see I'll call it the struggle of having that at your house. And there would be times as a kid, I'd get up late at night to get some water or go to the restroom, and my mom's in the office with 1 o'clock in the morning, printing out checks and, just doing the thing. And I really never envied that, and I didn't ever want that. That's part of the reason I went into education and got a couple degrees in that and went and did that. But God was calling me back, and I kind of blindly just said, okay, and went and did it. Joined, and about 6 months after I joined my family in building custom homes, I was mostly still working in the field as a carpenter and, spending a lot of time wearing my nail bag and working on jobs, and I loved that. But I knew that wasn't really the long-term plan for me, because while I am good at those things, that's not where my strengths lie. And then it all became very clear about 6 months after I joined, because all of a sudden, just like instantly, my mom had stage 4 cancer. And almost immediately, my mom and my dad were both out of the picture doing treatment. They did treatments all over the United States. They even did some treatments out of the country, and spent a 2-year battle fighting this cancer. And then we ended up losing my mom in 2020. But that was the baptism by fire that I needed, because what happened is that all of this fell into my purview. And when I say all of this, the whole company, the estimation, the billing, the project management, the client communication, all of those things fell on me. And while I had been part of construction on and off my whole life growing up, I had only done this full time for 6 months. So that was a baptism by fire. And I spent 2 years wondering if I was going to have a stroke that day or the next day. It was literally that amount of stress, because we had some very nice custom homes going on, and I was just having to figure it out. I didn't know how to run QuickBooks, but I was learning. And what happened, though, is God started tugging at me again, just like he did when I left education. And he said, you need people in your life that can help you. You need multiple advisors so the nation doesn't fail, like the Bible says. So I had already bought this book called Expert Ownership many months prior. So I'm reading this book, and I'm hearing about all these things, and I pick up the phone and I call, and I get a call back from Richard. And that was the beginning of the end of the chaos. From that point, we started making changes. We started systemizing. We started actually doing good business. And it has been a rock and roll, fast-paced thing since 2021. I started my coaching with Richard. And I'll tell you what, I'll never go back. I'll never go back.
Well, I'd have to agree with that. I wouldn't want you to go back either, no matter what. With or without me, I don't want you going back, because I think this is a common thing, right? So there's a lot of people hearing this, Craig, and they're resonating, because a lot of them have been in the same situation, whether it was just coming in a family business or starting their own business. Most of us start with some skill. We're a trade guy. We're a technician, right? We're good at what we do, the hands-on work. Then we go into business, because, I always say we can do it better than the guy we're working for. So we do that, and we want the money, but we don't know the business part. And even though you can, I'm going to air quote, succeed, right? You can be doing things, making a little more. The business part is what we really have to start looking at, because that's what gives you that, we'll call it the distance from the business. That's what creates your freedom, when it can run and you can get the right people in place. They have the systems and processes, the SOPs, everything else. You kind of build this thing out, and it's not an overnight thing. But once you get there, and that's where we want to go into in this story, Craig, because, just week after week, you put in the time, making the correction. We're whiteboarding stuff, right? Remember, we're on the whiteboard at the beginning, and we ran out of whiteboard. Okay, we're developing a process. We're ooh, I got to go next column, and there was a lot to it. And it was, I think early on, we saw the level of involvement you're going to have to build this out. It probably for you was a little overwhelming, but when we look at it, it's like now we can look back, right, and go, wow, that's that time you got to put in, right, to get the stuff dialed in. But that's that hard now, so you can do what you want later, right?
That's right. That's right. And that has become a reality. So as you know, we have found exponential growth in the last 3 years, so much so that my first experience was in my mom and dad's house. They had an office in there, and I had to drag a desk in there to set up to actually do some work. From there, I transferred to officing out of my favorite coffee shop when it wasn't too crowded, and always out of my truck. And then we moved into this office that I'm sitting in right now, which is a rental, and it is way too small. And I have 8 people, and I actually had to run 2 of them out of this office to record this because we're way too crowded. But we're 30 days away from moving into our new office that we're building that's 3 times the size of this office, all by the grace of God, and all because we're honoring and using skills that he's taught us in his word. We're delegating. We're doing the things that Moses learned how to do in the desert. All of those things just apply to business, and that is where my passion lies. If you want to know where my passion is, and you do, it is in kingdom business and using the Bible as a business guide in order to expand the kingdom. That's my goal. Building custom homes is that's a side effect of the main goal.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so good. I mean, and people, it's funny, and we could easily go down this little rabbit hole. Well, I'm not gonna, but I'm going to mention it high level. Sometimes they talk about it. We talk about it a lot, is the Bible itself, the relevancy. A lot of people say it's not relevant, and, they go down all that stuff, but it is so absolutely relevant. And in business, especially, and you're a living testament of it. I am. So many other people I work with are, because the principles are God's principles, and they work. As I always tell people, whether you're a believer or not, they still work. So you have that, right? So it's that, but it's the application of that to really help develop this business and go through this stuff. That's so awesome. I just love it. So like with your focus on that, for me, it's been a pretty amazing thing to see, just applying these principles and watching what God has done as far as bringing you the right people. I think that's one of the big things for you. I think you and I comment, like, I don't know what it is, every 4-6 months, there's another possible, like, this person could do this. And it's just, they just keep coming at the right time. They're the right people. And then it's a process. It's not, hey, just hire, it's so good to see. It's that patience you need to have. It's planting trees. Don't take the fruit for 4 years, 5th year, have at it, right? Yep. It's having the patience, planting the seed, let them grow, let them develop. And then you can kind of begin the harvest, which is really awesome. And that's what I see in your business, because there's actually more than one. So let's talk about that a little bit, kind of some of the things that came and where you've kind of pivoted to, not necessarily a pivot, but an addition.
Sure. It all boils down to my roots in agricultural education of being a farmer and planting seeds. And that leads into these other businesses that we've started, but it also speaks to the people that God has brought. We've never posted a job online. We've never put it in the paper or on Facebook. We have literally gotten every person on our team 2 to 4 months before we thought we needed them. And that's just because I'm willing to have the conversation with good people that fit our mission ahead of time and just have those conversations. You never know if they're going to go anywhere, but for me, they've gone somewhere. Some of those relationships have led me into 3 other businesses that we currently have outside of the building business, but they're certainly aligned with the building business. So we've started almost 2 years ago. We bought an installation business that has been both fruitful and a learning experience. And I'm super excited that we did it. It absolutely serves our custom home building company well. But what it's also done is created more networks with other builders in this area, because we serve a lot of other builders through that company other than myself. In addition to that, more recently, we've started a painting company. And the idea is to bring in as many spokes on the wheel as we can. The reason for that is more kingdom impact, because each company that we're in charge of and that we're entrusted with is committed to the kingdom of God. And that's the bigger impact that we get to have through that, because then we have discipleship opportunities for each employee and for each person that we serve. And we've also got real estate, and so we've got a property management company that is in its infancy, but it's established and it's operating. And then in the near future, we're going to start a construction marketing firm, because that's an area that we see as needed and as necessary, at least in our region. There's a lot of marketing companies available, but this is going to be an in-house controlled situation. And that's the idea, is that the construction company is the hub of a wheel that has spokes that are then controlled by us. And that helps us with our pricing, that helps us definitely with quality and with scheduling, but also with that overall impact, which is the goal, is impact over income. So those are some of the things that have spawned from the custom home building, but are equally as exciting.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, it's been a lot of fun to watch grow and be a small part of it. Just make this, keeping that mindset, because a lot of people will, like you're saying, Craig, a lot of people will kind of get the shiny object syndrome and go chase an opportunity because their one business is doing pretty well, but they don't really weigh the cost of that. They don't understand, is it really connected to what my main thing is? Like you said, the hub. It's one of the best analogies, really, that hub, spokes, the wheel. They have to be driving in similarity, right? Producing income. That all comes back to the main thing, so that when they're related, you're not starting from zero, right? Just like with the insulation company, now you know how to systemize a business. You put all this stuff in place. You can now acquire this other business that wasn't systemized, go and systemize that very rapidly so that it's self-running. It wasn't going to take all your time. Yeah, there's an investment in the beginning, but very quickly, you do this really, really quickly, where you've got the right people in place and they're handling the business. Right. And that's why that spoke works. Like you said, you're connecting with other builders, you're serving other people, you're serving your own clients. Right. So it's kind of a really good picture when people are thinking, hey, I'm doing really well with my business now, I'd like to do more. Because I think it's a tremendous investment when you take what we call active business income and you invest in the next company, in a business that is now going to generate income. You're going to serve people, like you said, increase that kingdom impact. It's an amazing process to watch happen. And it may be 2 more companies, maybe 5 more, maybe no more. That's all. Again, you've been really lucky when an opportunity has presented itself. Again, you've been in a position to see it, evaluate it, and take action on it. And that action sometimes is saying no. And other times it's let's go, right?
That's right. That's right. Yeah, that's where you find that God gives you a yes and then a go. There's 2 commands, right? So, for instance, the painting company, that has been a yes from God for over a year, but hasn't been a go from God until just a couple months ago. So it's all in listening and really paying attention and asking God to reveal those things to you. And then once you've asked him to listen, stand at the wall and listen for his answer. I tell you, and I'll say this more than once, God gets all the credit for any success that is shown within these businesses. And, that leads us to another facet of our life, that I've had a lot of trials, but I've also been extremely blessed and very successful. Losing my mother before she was 60 and kind of having to walk through the things that went on around that while learning this business and learning business, period. That was so stressful. I'm a relatively young, healthy individual. I eat right, but that put load on my body. That took stress, high blood pressure, the tension headaches and all the things. But truthfully, God has delivered that. But it doesn't matter what the trial is. The trials are going to happen. And we'll get to this in a minute, but we've had some recent trial. But what a blessing that trial has ended up being. And I'd love to share more about that, because it's actually revolutionized not only my personal life, but my business life.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, and we're gonna talk about that. I think it's a really good point that people in business especially, but life in general, like, you're always going to have trials. You're always going to have obstacles. You're always going to have things you have to overcome. You're going to have setbacks. It's just part of life. It's what we live in, right? But from a business standpoint, every one of these, and I've had the pleasure to watch you go through this stuff and kind of be there to see like what it's turned into. And that's what I want to talk about this. Let's get into, you and Ashley, and let's talk about this whole situation and where it really went. So let's get through that story with the house and then the next thing, because this is, again, just such a great example of perseverance, okay, of commitment, right? There's a lot of great things in this. So let's share that now, Craig, because
Sure.
I love this story.
Looking back, it's such a great story. So this story begins years ago, before we even knew there was a story beginning. And it all started with my wife's health. And for several years, it has been declining. But in the last year to year and a half, it really got bad. We're very holistic people. We believe in natural medicine. We believe in eating whole foods. We believe in being healthy. I won't go down all the road of all the chemicals and things, but those things are real and they're out there. But we felt like we were doing everything we could to keep ourselves and our two kids healthy, and her health kept getting worse and worse. We met with lots of doctors and couldn't figure it out. Finally, one, believe it or not, it's like this super easy thing to do. It's called a total tox test, and it's a urine analysis, and it's like, why don't we start with that? But apparently they don't. They should, because then they found a lot of mold in her system. And all of her symptoms were lining up with that, with mold toxicity. Now, we bought our home that we lived in 12 years ago. Don't know who built it, and I'm glad I don't know who built it, and you'll know why in a minute. But this doctor said, hey, you need to start looking into your home, into your environment, and finding out if you've got a mold problem. And it turns out that we did, and it was a rather large one. So being in this business, in the building business, I start evaluating the home, speak with a lot of consultants about microbial growth and things like this, and start looking in all the right/wrong places, and started finding the things that we didn't want to find. So fast forward about 5 days. This was a very fast process. We are looking for a rental to move into that is not also growing with mold, because a lot of old homes, due to less than ideal building practices from years ago, have the same problem. And it's been amazing to see how many people have contacted us after they learned about our story to find out, what did you do to find out? Because we're having these symptoms and we think that we might have a similar problem. Some of them do and some of them don't. But this all happened very rapidly. We found these results in the middle of July. And by the end of August, we had totally removed the house from the property. We had torn it all the way down, removed the slab, and learned along the way all the building practices that I really couldn't see without tearing it down that were done wrong. And we made the decision to tear the house down for a couple of reasons. The consultants were advising that we had a couple of options: to remediate, and I'll air quote, remediate the best we could, and sell the property, which is not an option for us because my father also has a home on the property and it's where we want to be. Second option was to gut the house, take it all the way to framing inside and out, treat the frame, and then build it back. Also not an option because of a couple reasons. One, I'm in this industry and I can tear down a house and build it faster and cheaper than totally gutting one and renovating it. And two, I was not convinced that the foundation was stable as far as water penetration. So get the house down, drive the excavator up on the slab, and it starts crumbling. I mean, it's turning to road base material. Start digging in it and find out there was very little rebar, if any, and very little moisture barrier, all the things that we have to keep water from wicking up through our foundation and creating mold under our flooring. So praise God that we made the decision to take it all the way to dirt and not just try to reuse that foundation, because if we had, we'd be in the same situation. Fast forward, that happens, we're talking 45 days from the time we found it to the time we're back to dirt. And now at this moment in time, we're almost ready to insulate and drywall in our new home. So it's been a very fast process, but my learning curve on how homes need to be built in order to prevent against this has been straight up. And the beauty in this story is everywhere. One, my wife and my kids and myself are now on a healing journey. Mold is not a fast thing. Just because you move out of it doesn't mean it's gone. Mold's a neurotoxin. It gets into your body and stays there unless you deliberately remove it. And so we're on that journey. And yes, my wife is feeling a lot better, but she's not well yet, but she's a lot better. My kids, my daughter was learning to read in and amongst this time frame, and she was struggling so much. And with the move into the rent house and getting her out of that environment, Within 2 months, she learned to read. And it's amazing how bad that environment is for somebody. So what does that do to our building practice? Well, immediately I begin studying. I begin digging. We've been building homes since 1980. We know how to build homes, but there's some things that haven't been done right in the whole industry and still are not being done right. So we've made some rapid changes in how we're building and how we're creating this healthy environment. And that is now what we are building. It is extremely beautiful custom homes, but they're healthy homes. They're healthy environments for you to live in and to thrive in, that your kids won't get sick in. So that's the beauty. I could go down tangents in our personal life of other beautiful things that have come out of this. From a business standpoint, God is using our situation to revolutionize what we can do to serve other people in a new home.
Yeah, it's so fantastic. I mean, again, it's problems are opportunities. Okay, that's the reality of it. Okay, I mean, some are worse than others. We get the whole health issues and everything else that you're overcoming. But the fact is that you take this stuff instead of just, I got this crappy home and it's got mold and I got to do this whole thing and woe is me and I got to spend whatever and build a new place. It's like, okay, that is all true. You got to do it. But like, where is the silver lining? And that research and started looking at that because now, and I'll tell you, it's amazing because it's a differentiator in your business. Okay. There's a lot of custom home builders. You're not a unicorn. Okay. Right. A lot of people, but what are they all doing differently? If anything, they're all turning out great product. Okay. But now you have this ability to go, well, there is another level of great product. Okay. That a lot of people haven't addressed. Would you say, Craig, it's still kind of in its infancy, the healthy home kind of from materials and everything else? It is, right? I mean, it's not, it hasn't been around for 50 years. I mean, this is something relatively new, right?
Absolutely. So a little bit of the backstory on that is that it is new. There are a literal handful of builders in Texas, which is where I'm at, or even in the country, that build what is considered a high-performance home. And a high-performance home has all the systems designed to work together so that we can prevent microbial growth, we can prevent rot and decay, we can prevent that decomposition of your home. Even the Bible speaks to mold. In Leviticus, it talks about mold being the leprosy of your home. So we're now preventing this by building a high-performance structure that you can live in. It changes your air quality. It changes all of those things. It's changed the insulation practices. It's changed the envelope practices. It has changed the structural practices are not so different, but how we're encapsulating those is. So yes, it is relatively new. And I do believe that as people learn and understand what this is, especially within the generation that I'm in and the ones following, health has not been a priority like it is for this generation. And the more people that I talk to and tell this story to, and especially other men that I talk to about this, they tell me, if you told my wife what you just told me, there is zero chance she's going with any other builder because you're telling her that you're going to protect her babies by building this home this way. And that's exactly what we're doing. And you're right. There's not a lot of people that are out there. But the beautiful thing is that there is a way for other builders to build this way. And I'm actually going through a journey right now of becoming a building biologist, environmental consultant, so that I can help other people. I can offer remediation plans, but then we can serve our client in this world-class building experience that we offer, even another level of security, knowing that all of these components that go into making a home work together, and they work for the health of the people living inside of them. We've spent so many years building, trying to lower the energy bill, and we still do that. We still achieve a very efficient home, but that shouldn't be the focus. The focus should be the living beings that are breathing and living in that home. So that is where the shift has moved to. And I do believe that that is a differentiator between us and at least all the other builders in this region. There are some in Texas that I communicate with, and we correspond and always trying to help each other get better, because fact is, I can't build everybody's house, but anybody that contacts me, whether I can serve them or not, I want them to have a high-performance home to live in. So we're creating a network of people that are building this way so that we can really serve more people by getting them into these environments.
Yeah, that's so great. I think if we take it from a builder standpoint, from a marketing standpoint, the business aspect of this. So we've got this thing, you figure this out, right? We just heard the story. Now you've got a high performance home, a healthy home. Now we have to take that, and from a business standpoint, how do we communicate that? Right? And we've been working on that, right? And it's really great. It's like, well, because there's a whole process to do that. We won't get into the whole process, but it really is, it's not just saying you are, right? There's a whole presentation. There's a whole deliverance of what a high performance home is, right? And I think this is where a lot of businesses get hung up. They may have these things, but they can't communicate them, right? It's a real challenge for businesses to be able to have a product, service, and upgrade, new and improved. Everyone's heard that to the point of it's a lie. How many times are you going to improve the laundry soap? Okay, new and improved, 10 times stronger, 10 times stronger. I'm like, well, it should like eat through my clothes by now. It's so strong. It's just the only thing left will be dirt. You know what I mean? The clothes themselves will be gone. But so people become jaded, right? So you're kind of opening a new market to people, and we have to learn to communicate this in a certain way. One of the things I love that, again, this is one of those, we'll call it the blessing in disguise, the fruit that comes from a bad thing, is the story you have. You have firsthand experience of the bad side, right? Of the mold, of the effects of it, big time, right? Not just a little bit, and that, again, has been the catalyst to create this and have this, but now you can also share that story, with potential clients, right? When people come to the site, they can see this kind of stuff. We're building that out. And I think that's the stuff I love. Like you can take that too, which is it hasn't been pleasant, but you addressed it, you took it on, it's getting better, you're doing that, now you're able to share that and hopefully prevent other people from ever having to experience that. That's a side bonus to having a magnificent home built by your company, our Leonard and Sons, right? I mean, that's what it's all about. So I love this. This is what I'm talking about, the kind of the big picture when everything comes together, as I've watched this over these years. It's just exciting to see, but to grasp those opportunities and turn them into something really productive.
That's right. That's right. You got to make lemonade out of lemons. And, I love the verse in Proverbs that says the beginning of wisdom is this: though it costs all you have, gain understanding. And the fact is that to learn these things, it costs something. And I'm so grateful it didn't cost my wife's life before we actually figured it out, because it could have. She was at that point. What's so beautiful about that cost and that expense is that if you commit that expense to the Lord, He will return it tenfold. He will return. He has blessed this business since July tenfold over what it's going to cost me to rebuild that house. He has brought us the right client, the clients that want to be served at the level that we serve, that want this level of performance of home and are willing to pay for it. And, kind of sidebar, the funny thing is, we can build this high performance home versus your standard home for about 2 to 4% total cost increase. That's not much. How much is your family's life worth? 2 to 4%? I think so. So it's not doubling the cost of the home, but it does increase the cost of the home. And I'll tell you too, another hard part in this industry is when a client gets multiple bids. You can't compare apples to apples. It's apples to oranges. Yes, the outside of the home will look the same whether this guy builds it or I build it, but I promise you the inside of the home is going to be different. And not appearance-wise, but the way you live in it will be different. And that's the message you're talking about, Richard. That's hard to get across, because I can sit here and speak in builder terms and talk about ERVs and makeup air systems and variable speeds and dehumidifiers and all the things. I can talk about those things, but my clients don't have any idea what that means. So we've got to communicate the story to them of how does working with us impact your future and your health and your kids' health and their ability to learn and thrive. So that is a hurdle. And like you said, we're working on that right now, how to get that message out to where it conveys that people understand that this is different than other.
Right. There's another thing I thought of, and I don't think we even spoke about this yet. What about resale value? It has to increase the resale value as well. It's kind of the comparing buying, I was going to say it, a Toyota compared to a Ford. Okay, that one's going to retain its value a lot longer.
Right.
I wouldn't even say which one, but the principle is the same.
Right.
I mean, that's a great selling proposition whenever it comes,
Sure.
whatever that time is, because it was built like that. So I think you're going to get that 2 to 4% back into resale. I really do. I think because you're going to retain that is going to be a desirable thing, Yeah,
I think there's going to be a bit of a delay in people realizing that, though, because this is new to the market. And when I say new to the market, there's been people building this way for several years, but it hasn't really had traction until, and I don't even know that it really still does in the mainstream of construction, but it is starting to gain traction. So what I think from a resale standpoint is that that's going to be a bit delayed, because we've got to build enough of these for people to realize this is what they want in order to pay more for it. But I do think that's coming.
We can say you heard it here first.
You heard it here first.
It's going to retain its value. We're making that prediction. But yeah, we kind of, again, another part of being a business owner, you got to look to the future.
That's right.
You got to understand where this goes. Yeah, maybe that now they're not going to, no one building their dream home is thinking about selling it. That's the reality. But we know that over time, 3, 5, 7, 10 years of building these homes, who's in the lead for that? Well, you are. Right? And then these people who have had them, and it comes to that time, well, there you go. So I just like to throw that part in there. But it's so cool to see this. It's such I love the pivot, and I'm going to call it fearlessness to do that, because not everybody would go that direction like that, because you're basically an early adopter, okay, in this industry. And, this is where things are won, right? It's early investment. It's seeing the future, okay, and you're giving it firsthand, right? And now you're going to start to develop and build this and then build what you do around this, right? Because I'll mention that you already had a lot of non-negotiables in your builds that you did where other builders might that be an extra. They don't really do that. A lot of things that made it a great home, right? And it was, whether it's dehumidification or whatever it was, you had those elements already. So my point being, you have a mindset for doing, I hate to say like quality, because like you better have quality, right? Your builders, like to say I do quality work is kind of like it's a non-starter. Like who doesn't? Who advertises they do bad work? I get that you need to do it and you do it. But what I found with you, Craig, was you had these certain non-negotiables, and you can share some of those, but it was the bill like, we know this has to be done. This is a level. This is the low bar for us. Okay. We don't go below this. That's what I love. I teach that a lot. Like what a lot of businesses don't do, whether it's with employees or standard operating procedures or anything else, they don't set a low bar. They all have this great high bar that honestly most of them never reach, okay, or don't hold to, but they never do the low bar. Like when do we stop tolerating what? And that's their problem. That's why they don't get rid of people. They run into different things. They're not really competing because they let people dip below that low bar. And I had a discussion once with someone regarding the low bar, like, well, why don't you just make it higher? I go ahead. It's your business. You can that's the whole idea. It's a low bar. It's the bottom. The height can be whatever, but the low, you have to determine what you're going to accept and what you're not going to accept. And if you could start there, you get it right now. Even from a pricing standpoint, we get it. No, we won't put that in for you, even if you want it. Right? It's like, well, can't we no, you don't want that, because it's like being a parent. Okay. Like I tell my kids all the time, you can thank me later. I know you think what I just told you doesn't work, but you can thank me later for that. Okay. It's the same principle. It's like, you can thank us later when you don't have these issues and these issues that you'll have because you wanted to save $1,000, and now you're going to spend 10,000 fixing the issues it created, or whatever the case. But I just think that's an important aspect of how you operate already, and now going to this next level of the high performance home, these healthy homes, I think it's just to me, it's a natural step to where you go. So for you, it's not a huge pivot, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're talking about the low bar and the high bar. The other part about all of this that again, God set up before I knew I needed it is he created some of these other spokes on the wheel, these other companies that I own, but they're subcontractors, the installation company, the painting company. Those are two of the largest outside of flooring. Those are two of the largest sectors that hold chemicals and toxins. So now I own the companies and can fully control the products that we are using in these homes, because it's hard sometimes as a builder. You rely on a lot of subcontractors. And I'll tell you this from experience and from seeing other builders do it. It's very easy to get complacent and say, you know what, the HVAC guy's a pro. This is what he does. I'm just going to trust whatever he's saying to do. That gets very easy to do. And not to knock them, they do a good job. But this is kind of new. And I just recently have had to spend a lot of time with my HVAC contractor walking through how we need this to be done now. And thank God he is so open to it. And all the contractors that we work with are open to it, but it's on us to educate them right now. And having these other companies that we own and fully control has allowed us to do this more rapidly. So this learning has spilled over into those so that other builders are now getting education through these subcontractor companies that we own on these products. On, hey, if your client is interested in a healthy environment, this is what we recommend. If you're just interested in getting the energy bill low, that's welcome to the club. Everybody's been doing that for 40 years. But if you're truly interested in offering a higher end product, let us help you get there. So I not only see this taking traction with us building custom homes, but with the subcontractors that we own that we can offer to other builders. So that low bar has been raised even within those two companies. So yeah, I think that the low bar has to be set. And I just proposed a new home to a client yesterday. We reviewed their estimate, and that's the last step before we go into contract. And it was funny because we had this very conversation. He was asking about a couple of different items that we could change. And one of them was funny. This was first. He wanted real rock all inside his shower. And I said, I will not do that. I will not do that. I'll do it on the outside where it's not going to get wet all the time, but I will not do it on the inside because there's a 100% chance you're going to get mold. 100% chance. And I will not do that. And he was kind of taken back. He's like, well, I want rock. And he said, well, I'm not your guy then. And we're at the point of signing a contract. And then, so he understood and he said, okay, if you feel that strongly about it, then we do too. And we're going to do tile, or we'll do this other thing. I said, good, because I want to build your home. And then we came around to another thing to where he wanted a metal column instead of a wood column. Didn't matter. It's going to get wrapped in stone inside the house. The wood column's more than strong enough for structural loading, but he wanted a metal column. And I said, sure, we'll do metal. And he said, well, how come the shower was so hard? You just totally changed the structural component, but you wouldn't change the shower? I said, no, because I am okay with a metal post because that's also strong enough. I'm not okay with the shower because it's going to make you sick. And I think it was that moment that locked him up, because we will work with the client. We will give them the things that they want when we do not compromise a principle that we stand on. So that was a super neat interaction.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because I think it is another one of the many reasons I love working with you, Craig, because in business, you have to have, again, we talk low bars, but talk about integrity right now. It's like you have to have some level of integrity. If it's just about the dollar, and hey, I'm going to close the deal if I give them a rock shower that in 8 months of using it, it's going to be moldy, right? Because they're so porous. I mean, I'm a rock guy. I know all about that, right? So never do that. Never put stuff in there, right? It's the last thing you want to do, and it'll be just a disaster, So, but that insistence on that, okay? And I want people to take this away, because when you stand for something, okay, when you believe in something, to your core, that transfers to your client. Okay, that is that willingness to turn down a whatever multi-million-dollar home because of a shower. Okay, that takes some courage for one, But that also tells that homeowner, okay, this is the guy I want building my home. Okay, he's not willing to bend on something like that. He gets it, but overall, there's a lot of confidence, and your clients, you operate with clients at a level that you have to have that.
Right.
Is a part of doing business, and the ones who don't do that, they're gonna have a much lower ceiling than you ever will, as far as cost and building and clients and everything else. So I just want to emphasize that, because I think a lot of that, and everybody's different, a lot of that's lost, whether it's in the trades and construction itself, things like that. There's just not this level of integrity and knowledge of your offerings, right? Where you understand, where you could, like you just gave the two perfect examples, steel or wood. I could do that for the column, no problem. Can't do it here, right? That's a level of expertise as well, right? Combined with that integrity. And it's a great takeaway for people to understand, like, oh, I could actually do that, because a lot of people know it, but they want the job. So they compromise.
Right.
But man, you got to live with that. You know what I mean? Like, I'm with you. I'd be like, that's not happening.
Right.
You know, and I've done it for people too. Things they've wanted, I've told them, you don't want this. Okay. And here's why. You know, and they give them the why that no one else has told them.
Yep.
No one else has told them the why. You're probably the first person, whether they're getting multiple bids or not, you're probably the first person who's actually told them no and why. And it convinced them. It was great.
Yeah. And I'm not one now. I would say in the past I have been, but now I'm not one to say, okay, here's the consequences. If you're okay living with that, we'll do that. That's not it anymore. You know, like, let me have you sign a disclaimer saying that your shower is going to get moldy, and then I'll build it that way. Well, no, that's bad practice,
right,
in my mind.
Right.
And I'm not going to say I've always been in that boat, but I am right now.
But I'll tell you, here's the funny thing. Even if they signed a disclaimer and everything else, you're still getting blamed. They'll still go and put a bad review on your thing, because it'll be blamed 2 years later. That's right. So you got to, so just another business, takeaway here. It's always going to be your fault. So it doesn't matter. So what you build matters. When there isn't issues, then no one's at fault. They're living. They have a happy, healthy home. It's all good. Right. You're not getting thrown under the bus, undeservedly. Right. Sure. Because, hey, they signed it. I told them it doesn't matter. You compromised. And that was the end result. So good stuff. That's really good stuff. That's been awesome. This has been great, Craig. Really, let's hit some final thoughts here. So this is where you get to share some things business-wise, personal-wise. You've hit a lot already, but kind of some final thoughts out there for the guys in the business who are, whether they're subcontracting, they're building the homes, or doing any of this stuff in business in general. What's some final thoughts for you that you want to share?
So whether you're a subcontractor or a general contractor, it really doesn't matter. This comment applies because we're in the service business. We're selling service. We're selling ourselves as servants. So it doesn't matter if you're a plumber or a pool builder or a water feature builder or a custom home builder. If you will focus on serving your client well, the profit will come if you're serving them well. So serving them well is going to require you doing certain things. One, caring about what they're talking about and helping them learn about the process that you provide and the service that you provide to a level that they have peace, but then also running your business in such a way that you can back up those promises. So you've got high quality individuals working for you. We hire more based around, well, really who God brings us, because I told you that earlier, and that's true, but it's that they fit the mission and we can teach them the content. That's not hard. It's the person that fits the mission that will uphold your promises. Because me as the business owner, I can make all the promises in the world to my client and get them under contract. But I'm going to do that a grand total of one time unless I actually have the team that can fulfill those promises and that also know those promises. So in order to serve your client well, you've got to know what your mission is and then cast that vision to your entire team so that they also know where they fit into that. Because if your technicians out in the field don't understand where they fit into the vision of your company, then your promises will not be kept. So I think that outside of bookkeeping, outside of all the little minutiae, the things that we have to do, the systemizing, all of those things are important. But I think the overarching most important thing is making sure your entire team is pulling on the rope on the same side and that they understand the vision so they can fulfill the promises of your company.
Yeah, it's the whole vision-driven business is something that we've worked on, right? We've understanding strategic vision and doing that stuff. And you're absolutely right, because people, everybody, I don't care what the job is, what the position is, they all want to work for purpose. And I think it's another great thing you've done with your company and companies is you've created this strategic vision. People know it, you review it, you come back to it. Are we fulfilling it? Right? It's not something that was, it's something that's going to be. And you actually fulfilled the first one. I had to rewrite a second one because you achieved all that stuff. And that's the beautiful thing about a vision. You can achieve it and set another one. But when everyone can articulate what your company is about, what our Leonard & Sons is about, why they do what we do and everything else, that's powerful. Because a homeowner talks to people. They might be walking the site, right? And now they're talking to the carpenter, and now they're talking to the project manager. Now they're talking to the fund, and everyone knows, and they're hearing the same thing. There's a congruency among the team that breeds confidence in the client for the company, right? It's all these little things you're talking about, Craig, for experience, right? A world-class experience, that kind of thing that people want to go through, but that takes development. You have to be very intentional on making that stuff, and you've done just that, and it's a testament to what is enabled you to do, increasing clients. I will call it acquisition, but it's the higher level of client, really getting higher levels of clients because of what you've created over these last 3, 4, 5 years, and it's just, again, it's a testament to that. So I just want to encourage people to understand, like, sometimes we all need to look at our numbers and understand our numbers, right? We need to be profitable and everything else. And you've done a ton of that, really, getting things straightened out with that. But we also really have to understand vision. Like you're saying, what that is, how you articulate it, how you craft this, how you build it so that this is company-wide. This is what they call company culture. That's what you've created. You've created the culture. People talk about it, but no one can really tell you how to do it, right? But there is a way to do it. And big part of that is that vision-driven aspect. So I'm really glad you ended with that. It's so good. Yeah, Craig, this has been so awesome. I know we could do a lot more. We'll have to do another one and go down some other roads. We got a lot of other stuff to talk about, but I think we really hit some great points on this to inspire some people to really look at their business, see what they're doing and how they can adapt. And I love the last part about this is a service business. You may think you're just bending pipe, doing plumbing. Everything is service. Okay. It's not a transactional thing. I mean, there's a portion of it that is obviously, but the service aspect. And again, if you want to work with higher end clientele, service is it. That's never gone away. Lower stuff, sure. I've been around long enough. These was service, everything about service. These rock bottom prices. Everything shifted. It was horrible. All people cared about was the growth of big box stores, right? Save those pennies, get this kind of stuff. But the reality is the clients you actually want to work with, they want to be served. And you should do it willingly because that's what makes a difference. And you're never going to be short of work. That's another misconception. We can talk about that another time. Yeah, Craig, I just want to thank you for joining us today on Sharpen the Spear. It's been a pleasure. Long time coming.
Long time coming. It was my pleasure.
Yeah, but it's been great. So everybody, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next Sharpen the Spear podcast. And don't forget, revenue feeds the ego, profit feeds the family. So if you want to see how I can show you at least $100,000 in hidden annual profits in less than 3 minutes, and not only show you where, but how to create that 100K in 6 months or less without additional advertising or marketing spend, guaranteed, just go to sharpenthespearcoaching.com. See how truly simple it is. That's sharpenthespearcoaching.com. Do it now.